Hello everyone, welcome to the Stalwart Initiative, and we're back for another Guild Spotlight segment featuring Exploring Ebron, the book we've been taking a look at here, and it is a book based on Eberron in the DM's Guild from the official author of Eberron, Keith Baker, and it adds a lot of things to your Eberron experience and to just general play, options for general play in D&D 5e. You're looking at Ebron lore, additional magic items, additional subclasses, which is what we're on right now, additional backgrounds, etc., etc. And this book is chocked full of goodness, and we're chugging through the subclasses right now. We are on the last two, which we'll be covering today. So let's get started. So today we're going to be looking at the Forged. I almost said Forged Domain. The Circle of the Forged Druid and the Way of the Living Weapon Monk. And these are two pretty cool subclasses that come with Exploring Ebron. So let's take a look. So the Circle of the Forged Druid. What is truly natural? The Warforged are living creatures despite being constructed from wood and steel. Druids who embrace the Circle of the Forged explore the potential of the Warforged form, blending animal shapes with Warforged durability. This is a young path, pioneered by a handful of Warforged who sought a greater understanding of their role in the world. Over the last few decades, a number of Warforged have embraced the Circle of the Forged. It's a lot of Forged talk here. However, it isn't limited to Warforged. A Kenneth heir of an inspiring artificer might pursue primal power as a way to transcend the limited flesh they were born with. Only a handful of druids follow this circle. And did you learn these techniques from a mentor? Are you driven by instinct, still learning what you're capable of? Or if you're a Warforged, were you designed with the potential to assume multiple forms? And if so, who created you and why? This is very cool. A theme with all these new subclasses is, or majority of them, is that they're all very much geared towards things that come from Eberron, but they're not limited to this. So Circle of the Forged is obviously Warforged centric, as well as the way of the living weapon is going to be more like your shifters and your changelings, stuff like that. And we'll get to that here in a bit. So you do get this subclass at level 2 when you get when all druids get subclasses. And here's the first feature is Circle Forms. The rights of your circle grant you the ability to transform into more dangerous animal forms. Starting at 2nd level, you can use your wild shape to transform into a beast with a challenge rating as high as 1. And you ignore the max. This is very much like the Circle of the Moon Druid. But so you can go up to a CR of 1. But you do still abide by the limits for like swim speed and flying speed. So, but you can transform up to a CR of 1 beast. And then additionally, starting at 6th level, you can transform into a beast with a challenge rating as high as your druid level divided by 3, rounded down. So this is the same thing as the Circle of the Moon Druid as far as your power level. So it gives you that initial feature. And where the Circle of the Moon differs from this is this next ability. The Circle of the Moon got Combat Wild Shape, which allowed you to have a few more options when, like, with healing and stuff while you're in your Wild Shape. This gives you the Skin of Steel. Arguably, I think a better and more powerful version, but let's take a look. Starting at 2nd level, while you're transformed by Wild Shape, you gain the following benefits. You gain a +2 bonus to armor class, which is great on top to help you survive in your animal form, in your beast form. You have advantage on saving throws against being poisoned, and you have resistance to poison damage. Survivability, very good. You don't need to eat, drink, or breathe. You are immune to disease. You don't need to sleep, and magic can't put you to sleep. While in beast form, your body is made of the same materials as a Warforged. Your muscles are root-like tendrils protected by armored plates. It's obvious to an observer that you are not a normal animal. This is very cool. Very cool. Not only do it's got a lot of survivability, but it allows you to work around certain problems. Say you're going into an area where you're destined to get disease as a normal person traversing through that area. If you transform into your into your beast form, you can bypass the ability to even contract diseases, which is cool, and things can't put you to sleep. That's also another way to work around problems. Though one thing to consider, especially as a DM, is that you are now made of metal and wood. So what pros and cons does that offer you, RP wise and technical wise? So things to think about. Very cool. Your 6th level feature is Elemental Fury. Starting at 6th level, you gain the ability to imbue your attacks with elemental damage, charging your claws with electricity or unleashing flames from your fangs. When you use your wild shape, choose one of the following damage types: acid, cold, fire, or lightning. While in your beast form, the first time you hit a creature with a melee attack on your turn, you can expend 1 spell slot to deal extra damage of that type to the target, in addition to the normal damage of the attack. The extra damage is 1d6 per level of the spell, or per level of the spell slot expended, to a maximum of 5d6. Wow, that's essentially adding on a sneak attack or smite, although you're limited to the first time you hit a creature. So it's more along the lines of a sneak attack without needing the advantage. So very cool. When you use this ability on a creature, your attack has an additional effect determined by which damage type you selected when you used your wild shape. If a creature is affected by this ability again in subsequent rounds, the effect does not stack and the new duration replaces the old. So makes sense that it wouldn't stack. And it gives you a list from those elemental lists, or effects from that elemental lists. Let's take a look. So acid. If you chose acid, the target must make a Constitution saving throw against your Druid spell save DC. On a failed save, its AC is reduced for 1 minute by an amount equal to half your Wisdom modifier, minimum of 1. At the start of each of its turns for the next minute, the target can make another Constitution saving throw. On a successful save, the effect ends. And with all these effects, they are endable if the save is eventually passed. So these aren't going to be major effects, and they probably aren't going to last very long. Unless you're going up against something that just really struggles to pass your saves. But so reducing their AC to half your Wisdom modifier is, you're typically looking at 2, because it's going to, typically looking at 2, and you could possibly get 3. Might start out, and I think at 6th level you should probably want to have at least a 1, unless you're multi-classing into this. But I think you're going to rock the 2, reducing their AC by 2, which is very nice and very effective, and can also help your party members. And yeah, very cool, very cool. Next up is cold. At the start of each of its turns for 1 minute, the target must make a Constitution saving throw against your Druid spell save DC. On a failed save, their movement speed is reduced to 0, and they have disadvantage on strength and dexterity checks. On a successful save, the effect ends. This, although delayed in effect, because it's the beginning of their turn, although delayed in effect, is pretty powerful. If they fail this and they reduces their speed to 0, they're essentially grappled, but without being grappled, so they're frozen. You did something that froze them in place, and they can't move away. In addition to that, if someone comes up and tries to grapple them, they have disadvantage on strength and dexterity checks, so they're gonna have a hard time trying to stop that or get out of that until they pass that save. Can be very effective. You can lock someone down pretty good like that. Next up, we have fire. So at the start of each of its turns for 1 minute, the target must make a Constitution saving throw against your Druid spell save DC. On a failed save, it takes fire damage equal to your Wisdom modifier. On a successful save, the fire goes out. If the target or a creature within 5 feet of it uses an action to put out the flames, or if some other effect douses the flames, such as being submerged in water, the effect ends. This is okay. This is actually the least interesting one, in my opinion. The damage is okay. It scales on your Wisdom modifier, so it'll scale up to 5, and that's okay. You know, that's additional damage, especially if they're not passing the saves. That can rack up over time. That's cool. It's a solid choice if you're looking for just DPS wise. And the last one is lightning. At the start of each of its turns for 1 minute, the target must make a Constitution saving throw against your Druid spell save DC. Again, same thing. On a failed save, it loses its reaction, until the start of its next turn, and the first attack that it makes on its turn is made at disadvantage. On a successful save, the effect ends. This can also be very, very beneficial. This is the whole lightning effect, where it takes your ability to use your reaction away. That can be pretty potent. That can allow your allies to escape without receiving opportunity attacks, as well as giving it disadvantage to on its first attack. Very cool, very solid option. I enjoy that, and the Elemental Fury as a 6th level feature. It's really hammering down that they're making this version of the Wild Shape very formidable in combat, and there's a lot of variety there for you to use. Also, at 10th level, you get Adamantine Hide. Starting at 10th level, while you're transformed by Wild Shape, you gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks. In addition, you gain the ability to use your Wild Shape as a reaction when you take damage, and the damage from the attack is applied to the hit points of your beast form. This can save your butt, allowing you to transfer that damage over to your Wild Shape. It would look kind of weird if it overlaps. It's enough to straight up kill your Wild Shape. So you use your reaction to Wild Shape right before the damage hits you, and then it hits you and poof, pushes you back because it took all your hit points from your Wild Shape, and you immediately pop back into your normal being. Very cool, and could come in very clutch. As well as action economy. You're casting spells, you're doing things, you know you want to Wild Shape eventually, but you really don't want to use you don't want to use your action economy up to do so and then get into fighting. This will allow you to do that while it's not on your turn. That way you're ready on your turn for the attacks. Very cool. At 14th level, you get Constructed Perfection. Starting at 14th level, while you're transformed by Wild Shape, you can't be charmed, frightened, paralyzed, petrified, or poisoned, and you are immune to poison damage, furthering the survivability of the beast form. At 14th level, what is this? That is a third rounded down. So a third would be 4. You could turn into CR4. Yep. You can turn into CR4 creatures, and you have all these defensive capabilities as well as the offensive capabilities from your Elemental Fury. Very cool. I'm actually looking forward to this. I would very much like to try this subclass out. So next up, our last subclass from the book is the Way of the Living Weapon Monk. A monk following the Way of the Living Weapon pursues physical perfection, honing their body as a smith sharpens a sword. Its traditions are drawn from cultures of shapeshifters and creatures who fight with tooth and claw. These are a few of the martial techniques that have evolved into the Way of the Living Weapon. And as I explained before, this is a lot of shapeshifter and changeling type stuff. And there is one feature in here that I just absolutely adore. We'll talk about it here very shortly. But this really wants you to use your unarmed strikes and not so much the monk weapons that you're offered with your martial arts, but really wants you to do unarmed strikes. And let's take a look at all the different ways you could go with this. So the Forged Heart is a recent path, developed by Warforged, exploring the potential of their constructed frames. This involves both the physical evolution of the body and harnessing the strength of steel and stone. And the Nightmare Shroud is a Kalashtar tradition. Rather than physically transforming, Nightmare monks generate ectoplasmic projections, manifesting claws of shadow. Blending physical blows with psychic attacks, they strike fear into the minds of their enemies. A Kalashtar typically surrounds themselves with the image of their quarry spirit, but the shroud can take any shape. Yeah, Kalashtar are a race that deal with the otherworldly dreamscape beings known as the quarry, and this is a pretty good take for the monk as well. I like the whole theme with the Nightmare Shroud. And next up is the Traveler's Blade, which I don't understand the name but I love the features, and you'll see why. The Traveler's Blade was developed by tribal changelings, providing the practitioner with the versatile weapons that can't be taken away. A practitioner can grow bone blades or knuckle ridges, or stretch their limbs to strike a distant foe. This is very cool, very cool. The wear touch techniques. This is the last kind of option, as this is going to branch out, and you're going to choose what kind of path you want to go here. The wear touched techniques were developed by shifter champions of Olorun, honing the natural weapons and strengths of the shifter. So those are kind of the breakdown of the different kind of techniques that you're going to be offered here. So your first feature at 3rd level is Fist of Bone and Steel. At 3rd level, when you choose this tradition, your martial arts damage die increases for unarmed strikes. You can roll a d6 in place of the normal damage for your unarmed strikes. This die changes to a d8 at 5th level, d10 at 11th, d12 at 17th. This increased damage can only be applied to unarmed strike and not to a monk weapon. What this is saying is it early boosts your martial arts damage. Normally at 3rd level you would still have a d4 for your martial arts damage die, and that changes to a d6 at 5th level. Whereas this puts you a step ahead. So at 3rd level you get the d6, and at 5th level that goes up to a d8, and you're always 1 die ahead. Normally the monks you would cap out at a d10. This allows you to go the whole way up to a d12. All those unarmed strikes with a d12 instead of a d6, or I'm sorry, instead of a d10 late in the game. Pretty sweet, pretty sweet. The only caveat there is that it has to be unarmed strikes and not monk weapons. That's where the difference lies there. But it's cool. It's kind of like the bard we took a look at, that gives you, that just boosts up your power earlier for your normal class features. Very cool. Next up we have Martial Discipline. This is also at 3rd level. You adopt this tradition and you choose a discipline and gain its features. This is when we described earlier about the different types, different pathways you could go here. These are these pathways. So the first one is the Forged Heart. Your unarmed strikes are considered adamantine weapons. In addition, when you hit a creature with an unarmed strike, you can spend 1 key point to cause it to make a strength saving throw. On a failed save, the creature takes 2d6 additional damage of the same type as the unarmed strike, and can be pushed up to 15 feet away from you. On a successful save, the creature only takes 1d6 points of additional damage and is not pushed back. So we're going to see this as a theme with these, is that you can do additional damage as well as an effect, and you get the different ways to spend your key points. And this one is 1 key point to deal 2d6, possibly 2d6 extra damage, and push them 15 feet away, which if you're pushing them 15 feet, depending on what you're pushing them into, they could take an additional 1d6 of damage right there, just slamming them up against or making them fall off something, as well as doing some battlefield control. You're pivoting around your enemies and you're pushing them 15 feet away, making them get away from your allies so that they could also reposition or get away. This is, yeah, Forged Heart, fantastic. And you automatically, for spending the key point, you automatically get the d6 of damage. So even if they pass, no biggie, you at least get the damage. You at least get something out of it. It's not wasted. Next up is the Nightmare Shroud. When you hit a creature with an unarmed attack, you can spend 1 key point to assail it with fear, causing it to make a wisdom saving throw. On a failed save, it takes 1d6 points of psychic damage and becomes frightened of you until the end of your next turn. If a creature succeeds on this save, they are immune to the fear effect of this ability for 24 hours. This one's okay. I like the Nightmare Shroud roleplay wise, but as far as mechanically, you're doing less damage. Granted, it's psychic than the Forged Heart, and if they do fail this effect, they're frightened until the end of your next turn, not theirs. So that is a very long ride for frightened. Very cool, very cool. The problem with this is if they fail it, if you go this path and this is what you want to focus on, and you're finding that they're passing your wisdom saves, they're immune to that for the next 24 hours. So that could, yeah, that could kind of sway me away from that, because then you lose this, essentially lose this feature. You can keep dumping key points into doing an extra d6 each turn, but that's really not worth it when you have other options. But then we get to the Traveler's Blade. your reach extends by 5 feet. Okay, 10-foot punches all around, I'm in. Additionally, at the start of your turn, you can expend up to 4 key points to extend your reach even farther. For every key point you spend, your reach extends by an additional 5 feet until the end of your turn. This is just hilarious to picture it. And I can't get what's the Carlot guy, the big tall guy with the wavy hands? I forget the name. He's somewhere on screen right now. I know he's going to show up. But I just picture Mr. Fantastic growing your limbs super long. So you already have 10 feet, right? And up to 4 key points, that's up to 20 additional feet. You can get up to a 30-foot reach with a monk. Wow. Yeah, I love it. I just love it. For me personally, on a more serious note, I would probably just have it, maybe you're a monk and you're very oriented on plants, so you would have like these vines growing out of you, and the vines could jut out and stab people and all that kind of stuff. You know, you can make it work. You can make it actually pretty cool and spooky and stuff, but yeah, sorry, just happy flailing hands is all I got in my head right now. Next up is Were Touched. Once per turn, when you hit a creature with an unarmed attack, you can spend 1 key point to rend your target and inflict deep bleeding wounds. At the start of each of the creature's turns for the next minute, it takes 1d4 points of slashing damage from this effect. The effect ends early if the creature has 1 or more hit points restored, if any creature uses its action to expend 1 use of a healer's kit, or makes a successful medicine check with a DC equal to your key save DC. When you reach 6th level, this slashing damage counts as magical for the purpose of overcoming resistance, which is a normal monk thing anyway with your unarmed strikes, and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. But they're just putting that in there to let you know that that D4 is going to be considered magical. This is okay. Again, it's more damage. I like this more thematically than anything. That you're rending them and they're bleeding. They could possibly leave a blood trail and you could track them, and that would be kind of cool. But man, that's so easy to counter. It's such little damage and so easy to counteract it. All they have to do is either fix the wound or have the wound fixed. It doesn't even have to be them, or just gain 1 hit point. That's easily counterable. Cool thematically, and it does get a little more love later on. We'll see that here soon. So next up we have Mutable Strike, and you have the power to alter your natural weapons, growing claws or reinforcing your fists. Starting at 3rd level, when you use your martial arts to make an unarmed strike, you can choose whether you inflict slashing, bludgeoning, or piercing damage with the attack. So this allows you to adapt your different attack types, your different unarmed strikes. So whether you want spiky bones or sharp claws for slashing, or just really like armor-plated, bone-plated stuff up on your knuckles, your choice. You get to pick how you dish out the unarmed strike damage. Okay, at 6th level, that's all our 3rd level stuff. A lot of stuff. At 6th level, we get Manifest Blow. Starting at 6th level, choose one of the following damage types when you finish a long rest: bludgeoning, piercing, slashing, cold, lightning, necrotic, psychic, or thunder. On your turn, the first creature you hit with an unarmed strike takes an additional 1d6 points of the damage of that type. If you select bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing, it benefits from your key empowered strikes class feature and counts as magical damage. Basically saying that this also is included in the magical damage thing if you pick those. Nightmare Shroud monks typically inflict psychic damage with this ability. Forged Heart monks enhance their bludgeoning damage, and where touched grow sharper claws. However, you can choose any damage type regardless of your discipline. Very cool. That's okay. You know, it's adaptive, it's extra damage. I like it. Yay. They don't all have to be stars. Just reliable, that's all. At 11th level, you get Reflexive Adaptation. Starting at 11th level, when you make a Strength, Athletics, or Dexterity Acrobatics check, you can spend 1 key point to roll an additional d20. You can choose to use this ability after you roll the check, but before the outcome is determined. You choose which of the d20s is used for the ability check, omitting the highest if the check was rolled with disadvantage. In addition, the extra damage dealt by Manifest Blow class feature increases to 2d6. So now that our 6th level ability is now increased to 2d6, that's automatically, yes, awesome, good. More damage, all the damages. And this is really cool. It essentially gives you, for a key point, essentially gives you a advantage on athletics or acrobatics checks. Although, by the way I read it, it is advantage, but you don't have to declare it advantage before you roll. You can wait to see what you roll with the first die, as well as you can't get around disadvantage, because it does say omitting the highest if the check was rolled with disadvantage. So I'm assuming that that means you can't get around disadvantage. If you had disadvantage with the check, you still have it. So yeah, out of luck there, but very cool, and very useful, especially if you're trying to escape grapples and whatnot. Very useful. So at 17th level, our final ability is Perfect Form. At 17th level, you transform your body to become a weapon of war. You gain a feature based on a discipline of your choice. You can choose the same discipline you selected at 3rd level or a different one. So this allows you to either stick your same path or kind of change yourself or change your prowess in other areas as well. So the Forged Heart 17th level ability is when you're hit by an attack, you can use your reaction to add your wisdom modifier to your AC, including against the triggering attack. This effect lasts until the start of your next turn. This is essentially a shield spell without having to use a spell, just your reaction, and it adds your wisdom modifier. So at 17th level, you're looking at probably 2 to 4, maybe 2 to 5, depending on how much you spec into wisdom. But so like 2 to 4 AC on top of yours, very cool. Very cool, especially with your unarmored defense anyway. This is a welcomed change. Forged Heart, thumbs up. Next up, we have Nightmare Shroud. When you damage a creature with your Manifest Blow, excess psionic energy ripples to up to 3 different creatures of your choice within 30 feet. Those creatures take an amount of psychic damage equal to half your monk level. Whoa, that's good. That's good. So within 30 feet... when you do your Manifest Blow, within 30 feet of you, 3 other creatures, at this point when you get this at 17th level, 3 other creatures take 8 psychic damage. They don't get a save. They don't get anything. They just take 8 psychic damage of your choice. Because, yeah, it's just because rippling out away from you. Very cool. This is where the Nightmare Shroud shines once you get to 17th level. Yeah, I just wish they had a little more going for them earlier. But very cool, very cool. And the Traveler's Blade. Woo! You know. When you damage a creature with your Manifest Blow, excess... Whoa. Sorry, it was just there. That's Nightmare. Traveler's Blade. When you deal piercing or slashing damage to a creature with an unarmed strike, it takes an additional 1d8 poison damage and must succeed on a Constitution saving throw against your key save DC or be poisoned until the end of its next turn. When I first looked at this, it's kind of sad they didn't add bludgeoning. You know, if you have these nice wavy arms, you could add like a club-like bone thing at the end and bop them. But I understand the poison transfer thing. It takes... that can rack up. It doesn't seem like much, only a d8 poison damage, especially since a lot of things are resistant to poison or downright immune. It doesn't seem like much, but it does stack up because... yeah, it's all unarmed strikes. It's all of them. So you volley off a flurry of blows on someone, that's all of them. That could be pretty powerful. Almost in guaranteeing that they're poisoned, which will affect their checks and make it easier for them to grapple and harder for them to do it to you, and also other effects. Very cool, very cool. Go Gumby. Where touched, when you, its last feature, when you use your flurry of blows, you can make 3 unarmed strikes as a bonus action instead of 2. You have advantage on these attacks. So, where touched earlier, well, we had the 1d4 points of damage, the rending, and bleeding, essentially, because some things don't bleed. This is really cool. It not only gives you a third attack on your flurry of blows, it gives you all of them with advantage. All of them. Oh, beautiful. It's beautiful stuff. And in addition to that, you can throw on other key point powered abilities on top of that, as long as they don't take an additional factor like a bonus action or whatever you use. Very cool. Very cool. I like these two subclasses. I like all the subclasses here. And just really loving this book. Really loving this book. So let me know what you think in the comments below. And you can find this at the DM's Guild. Yeah. Let me know what you'd like to see next. If you have anything in particular we'd like to cover, there's items here, and there's backgrounds, there's lore. Let me know what you'd like us to cover next. And until next time, unity is strength. So take care of each other, stay safe, and we'll see you again real soon.